What if I told you there is a version of Jujutsu Kaisen where nobody dies, where Nanami clocks out on time, where Junpei gets to go to the movies with his mom, where Nobara never takes that hit in Shibuya? Sounds like a dream, right? But there is a catch. This is not some random fan wish. This timeline exists because of one single change. The object Yuji Itadori picks up in episode 1 is not Sukuna's finger. It is a fragment of his own future self. Let me set the stage. In the sequel series, JJK Mahito, we follow a 6-8-year-old Yuji Itadori. He has become the strongest sorcerer alive. At the end of his life, he makes a choice. Just like Sukuna before him, he decides to split his soul into cursed objects after death. But here is where things get strange. One of those fragments, carrying decades of memory and power, does not just sit around waiting to be found. It punches through time itself and lands in the past. Specifically, it lands at Sugisawa High School on the exact day a much younger Yuji is supposed to find a rotting finger in a box. Instead of Sukuna, young Yuji swallows a piece of his own future. And just like that, the entire story of Jujutsu Kaisen splits into something unrecognizable. Today I am going to walk you through exactly what happens next. Every death that gets undone, every fight that changes. And the one big question this timeline forces us to ask: if you erase all the tragedy, do you also erase what made these characters great? Part 1. The fragment and the knowledge it carries. Before we get into the chaos this change causes, we need to understand exactly what young Yuji just swallowed. This is not just a power boost. The fragment contains the full memory of a 6-8-year-old man who has seen everything. Every battle, every loss, every secret the Jujutsu world tried to bury. It also carries fully developed curse techniques. We are talking about blood manipulation pushed to its absolute limit. A complete version of Shrine, the technique Yuji inherited from Sukuna, with Dismantle and Cleave fully mastered. And perhaps most importantly, a perception ability that lets the user see the outline of the soul itself. Think about what that means for a moment. In the original timeline, Yuji spent months just learning the basics. He stumbled through fights, survived on instinct, and learned the truth about his world through pain and failure. But now, the moment that fragment dissolves in his stomach, young Yuji knows things no one else in this era should know. He knows that the man wearing Suguru Geto's face is not Geto at all. He knows that a cursed spirit named Mahito is about to be born and will become the key to a nationwide death game. He knows that Shibuya is a trap designed specifically to seal Satoru Gojo. He knows everything. And here is the beauty of this setup. This is not some random character getting future knowledge they cannot act on. This is Yuji Itadori, the guy who ran into a cursed spirit fight with zero training just because he thought it was the right thing to do. Give that guy a roadmap of every tragedy about to unfold, and he is not going to sit on his hands. He is going to move. Part 2. The domino that topples Kenjaku. The very first thing future Yuji does is break the biggest secret in the entire series. He tells his younger self, and then Gojo, the truth about Kenjaku. For anyone who needs a refresher, Kenjaku is the ancient brain-like curse user who has been body-hopping for 1,000 years. In the original story, he spends most of the plot hiding inside Suguru Geto's corpse, manipulating everyone from the shadows. No one figures it out until it is far too late. But now, Gojo learns the truth almost immediately. And this matters more than anything else in the entire timeline. Here is why. In the original Shibuya incident, Gojo gets sealed inside the prison realm for one reason only. He freezes when he sees Geto's face. That moment of shock, that split second where his brain short-circuits trying to process how his dead best friend is standing in front of him, is what triggers the seal. The prison realm requires the target to stand still for 1 minute of mental time. Without that hesitation, the seal cannot close. If Gojo knows from the start that the person wearing Geto's face is an imposter, the entire Shibuya trap falls apart before it even gets drawn on a whiteboard. Kenjaku's master plan crumbles at its foundation. The strongest sorcerer of the modern era never gets taken off the board. Part 3. Erasing the Culling Games. With Gojo still active and the element of surprise completely gone, the dominoes start falling fast. The next target is Mahito. In the original timeline, Mahito is the linchpin of Kenjaku's Culling Games plan. Kenjaku absorbs Mahito and gains access to idol transfiguration, the technique that lets him remotely activate the curse techniques of people across Japan. That is what starts the death game. No Mahito absorption, no Culling Games. The math is that simple. So future Yuji and Gojo do the obvious thing. They hunt Mahito down early and destroy him completely. Not seal him, not delay him, erase him, without a trace. And just like that, the Culling Games never happen. Think about what that removes from the story. No colonies of sorcerers forced to kill each other. No military invasions of cursed zones. No random civilians getting dragged into supernatural death matches. An entire arc of suffering simply deleted from existence. But the real impact here is not about the big events. It is about the small, personal tragedies that never get a chance to happen. Let me walk you through the human cost this timeline avoids. Part 4. The faces that get to keep smiling. Junpei Yoshino and his mother. In the original story, Junpei is a lonely kid who gets manipulated by Mahito, watches his mother die, and then gets transfigured into something unrecognizable before dying himself. It is one of the cruelest sequences in the entire series. But if Mahito is destroyed early, none of that happens. Junpei never falls under his influence. His mother never gets attacked. Junpei probably transfers to Jujutsu High eventually, or maybe he just lives a normal life. Either way, he lives. And that is the point. Nanami Kento. The man who wanted nothing more than to retire to a beach in Malaysia. In Shibuya. He gets burned, battered, and then killed by Mahito in a hallway while Yuji watches helplessly. Without the Shibuya trap, without Mahito running loose, Nanami survives. Maybe he actually gets his beach retirement. We can hope. Nobara Kugisaki. Her death in Shibuya is one of the most debated moments in the fandom. But let us be clear about what happened. Mahito touched her head with idol transfiguration during a chaotic fight, and she collapsed. The story has been ambiguous about her status, but the trauma is undeniable. Remove Mahito from the equation, and that moment never comes. Nobara stays on her feet, loud and swinging her hammer. Maki and Mai Zenin. This one is more complicated, and I want to be honest about that. In the original timeline, Mai dies, and gives Maki the final push she needs to achieve a complete heavenly restriction, turning her into a monster on the level of Toji Fushiguro. In this new timeline, Gojo and future Yuji put pressure on the Zenin clan early. The persecution stops. Mai never reaches the breaking point where she sacrifices herself. Both sisters survive. But Maki never reaches that same peak of power. This is the first real trade-off this timeline presents. Survival versus potential. Peace versus strength. Keep that thought in your head, because we are going to come back to it. Megumi Fushiguro. Oh, Megumi. The guy who spent the original story getting his body stolen by Sukuna, watching his sister's fate hang in the balance, and generally suffering in ways that are hard to summarize in a single sentence. In this timeline, Sukuna never enters the picture at all. Young Yuji swallowed a fragment of himself, not the King of Curses. Which means Sukuna never gets a front row seat to Megumi's potential. He never sees the 10 Shadows technique up close. He never decides that Megumi is the perfect vessel to steal. Megumi keeps his body, his autonomy, and his sister. No possession, no bath ritual. No watching helplessly while Sukuna uses his hands to kill people he cares about. Part 5. The final fight that changes everything. Alright, so we have established that most of the cast survives and thrives. But what about the big one? The fight between Gojo and Sukuna? Because let us be real, that confrontation is coming no matter what. Kenjaku still wants to bring Sukuna back. He just has to find a different way to do it now. Here is where things get really bad for the King of Curses. In the original timeline, Sukuna had two massive advantages going into his fight with Gojo. First, he had stolen Megumi's body, and with it, the 10 Shadows technique. That gave him access to Mahoraga, the divine general that can adapt to any phenomenon. Second, Mahoraga's adaptation process showed Sukuna a blueprint for bypassing Gojo's infinity, a technique that eventually became the world-cutting slash. That slash is what killed Gojo. In this new timeline, Sukuna has neither of those things. Megumi was never possessed, so the 10 Shadows technique remains out of reach. No Mahoraga. No adaptation blueprint. No world-cutting slash. On top of that, Kenjaku is forced to use a far inferior vessel to house Sukuna's soul. Without a perfect container like Yuji, Sukuna's physical form is unstable. He is fighting at less than full capacity against a Gojo who has not been sealed, has not been traumatized by watching his students suffer, and has had time to prepare. The result is not really a fair fight. Gojo wins, and the victory is decisive. But here is the detail that really sells this timeline as something special. Future Yuji, with his ability to perceive the boundaries of the soul, assists in the final moment. He does not just help defeat Sukuna. He separates Sukuna's remaining soul fragments from the crumbling vessel and eliminates them completely. No chance of return, no lingering curse, just a clean, permanent end to a 1,000-year nightmare. Part 6. The price of a perfect world. So, here we are. Everyone is alive. The major villains are defeated. The world is saved. Young Yuji has absorbed the skills from his future self and has become something unprecedented. A sorcerer wielding blood manipulation, shrine, and eventually a domain expansion. all at the same time. He is arguably the most versatile fighter in the world. The fragment of future Yuji inside him slowly fades. Its voice grows quieter. But before it disappears completely, there is a sense of peace. Because this version of Yuji finally got to see something his original timeline never gave him. A world where the people he loved did not have to die. A world that was not built on a mountain of corpses. But I told you to keep that thought about trade-offs in your head. So let us talk about it honestly. Maki never becomes the second coming of Toji. She is strong, sure. But she does not touch that ceiling of pure physical supremacy that tragedy unlocked in her. Yuji himself never goes through the soul-crushing experience of watching Nanami die, of watching Nobara fall, of feeling completely powerless against Mahito. Those moments in the original story broke something in him, but they also forged something. Do you lose that sharpness when you never have to be broken in the first place? There is a version of this thought experiment that asks a harder question. Is a safe, peaceful world one that produces warriors who can handle the next threat? Or does removing all the struggle create a generation that has never been truly tested? I do not have a clean answer to that. I am not sure anyone does. But the fragment of future Yuji seemed at peace with the trade. Maybe that is enough. He looked at the scars his original timeline left on everyone, himself included, and decided that a softer world was worth the cost of lower peaks. That is the timeline. That is what happens when a 6-8-year-old Yuji Itadori decides to rewrite his own story from the very first page. No Shibuya massacre. No Culling Games. A Gojo who survives, and a Sukuna who does not. And a cast of characters who actually get to live long enough to see a peaceful tomorrow. Now I want to hear from you. This is the part where you jump into the comments and tell me what you think. Do you prefer this timeline? The one where everyone gets to go home? Or does the original story, with all its pain and loss and hard-earned growth, feel more meaningful to you? Is a happy ending always the best ending? Or does tragedy serve a purpose that comfort cannot replace? And here is a harder question. If you had to pick one character whose survival matters most to you, who is it? Nanami? Nobara? Junpei? Someone else entirely? Let me know down below. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want to see more what-if scenarios from Jujutsu Kaisen, hit that subscribe button. I am building out a whole series of alternate timelines, and I would love to have you along for the ride. Drop a like if this video earned it, and I will see you in the next one.